Yeah, like. Good morning, good morning. We'll get started with the announcements to get the day going. The first, the nagging announcement, don't forget VMS. It's getting down close. As you can see, we're ordering shirts and name tags and those kind of things, so. Be sure you get them in VMS. If you have any questions at all, ask. I'm gonna ask if Melissa can join us next Saturday, just to make it official. To get in, so. That we have. In theory, two presenters, we haven't seen Bob daily. To do food web. And soils, but Abby is here. We'll have, we're we'll have Abby start. Do Herpetology talk. Be thinking about long term, like after graduation. Sounds like a high school counselor. If there are any committees you're interested in, your topics you're interested in. If you have a project that you'd like to present, thought of a project is doing a presentation, not up here. It's like on the side, if you want to use a trifold or bring some exhibits. Or some of those things. I just ask that you send a note to Heartwood trainings and gmail.com and let us know what you're going to do. Just so we can have enough table set up for that for the day of graduation. So we'll do that the day of graduation. Doesn't have to be elaborate, or it can be if you want. We found that most of the people that end up doing projects are doing it because they want to learn something about the topic. More so than presenting to someone else. The presenting part is the great part. So, but send us an email like this next week, so we can be prepared. We're already starting to prepare for graduation. Speaking of that, we have a couple of shirts in the back that you can try on for sizing if you haven't done it yet. We checked with CC Creations, who we buy these from. They don't have this shirt in women's sizing. Apologize for that. But you can approximate, there's a medium and a large back there you can try, and a list if you want to change what you told us. Any application. So we have a couple classes in May, then a break. There is no class May 24th, I believe. They can double check me on that because that's Memorial Day weekend. And then there'll be one on the 31st or thereabout. And then graduation. Yeah, good. And graduation on the 7th. Graduation's at 2 p.m. presentation, and it should be, I think, in this here at AgriLife, and I believe it's in this room. You'll be getting an RSVP request 2 weeks out or so. Family, friends are absolutely welcome. The more the better. This is also a good time to maybe drag in a prospective intern for next year. So bring them along, let them see, let them talk to the folks. It will be, June 7th is graduation, and June 8th, the training team will be starting to talk about how do we find interns for next year. Maybe not the 8th, but soon after. So, any questions? No, good. We'll be in the back online. If you have any questions, let us know. We're gonna, if you know your password and ID for VMS, I'll be in it. You can look. If you show me something, if you need to show me something or ask questions, happy to see if we can help. So, anything else? Virginia, anything?
You're gonna get credit for the very last session graduation. You have to be here in person because it will not be Zoom. It's graduation, the first hour is walking around looking at people's projects, and they can be one person like it at scavenger hunt for kids going out in nature, so it can be
Yeah.
elaborate, there's on fungi that's really elaborate, and then down to simple, whatever, what you're. It's just to share learnings and.
Yeah.
Talk to you.
And remember, and I know this could confuse me last year, it took a while. 40 hours of initial training gets you graduate. Then 40 hours of volunteer work gets you certified. And if you, plus 40 hours of volunteer work plus an additional 8 hours, I should say, gets you certified. And that 8 hours is advanced training. The good news is, if you've got the 40 hours to get graduated, and you come to a couple more classes, including graduation, that counts for advanced training. You can knock both of those out. That if you're very industrious, and I think from some of the stuff I got from Melissa, I see that some of you have more than 40 volunteer hours already. 80 hours your first year gets you double certified. So you get not only your pin showing you graduated and certified, you get the pin that they use each year to show that you get your regular certification, which this year is a road runner. Yeah, so yes, ma'am.
So if you, at the June 7th graduation, do you get those pins then? If
You get,
If you have certified.
Yes.
you get a pin for that. If you have double certified, oh wait, if you have double certified, yeah.
if you certified, you would get the road runner pin. No, no, you get your butterfly, I mean, your dragonfly.
You get your dragonfly,
Yeah.
certified. If you double certified, you get your road runner also.
you're at
Yeah.
that June
That's
7th.
okay.
We need Melissa here to explain it. The big deal, pins are a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's not in VMS, she does not consider it official. So I'm just warning you now. If you have the 40 hours on the Friday before, and you're good because you. There you go.
I have a question. If I put them all in VMS under initial hours though, do the ones that are over 40 automatically go
No.
to 18 or I have to log
You need to
them?
log them in.
Log them as AT.
Yeah.
I think it's AT single presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the drop down box, AT single presentation.
Maybe. You may have put it.
Well, is it? Is it? Okay. You may have changed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that makes it.
So if the deadline to be able to double certify, is that by
The week before.
the week before?
To get your pin, you can double certify all the way up to the end of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I ended up certifying in, I don't know, May or June, July, and then double certifying in November. And I got pin in December or November.
Or it could be like me, I'm really certified at the end of the year that I interned, because the intern class my year went all the way through October. So it didn't leave a whole lot of time to. Do volunteer overtime.
See, we may get clarification.
Yeah, it's initial training. Oh, no, that's your training.
No, initial training is this. And then anything beyond the 40 hours, if you've already got 40 hours, and you're still coming to class, which we
Yeah,
hope that you do, you can count those as advanced training.
we think it's single presentation.
Yeah, advanced training, single presentation, that's what I use. Yeah, VMS is not what you would call an intuitive. It's just,
And I want to encourage that if you have your 40 hours today, don't stop coming, because the next few lectures are fantastic. And it's very disheartening for them and us if nobody comes because they've got their 40 hours. And I mean, they are really the first lady is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so don't just say, okay, I'm done. And don't come, because you will learn something and you'll have fun.
yeah, those last ones, which I was really interested to do. And then there's, I think Carrie's still gonna do the mycology,
Yeah,
mushroom walk
and we have the bats.
and the bats, yeah, special, if you look at the calendar you used to use Saturday mornings, there's a Sunday evening, the 18th. In Huntsville, so it's a trip. Bring the whole family to that, one. And it's watching the bats come out of the great story. I think Gerald's told the story to the group. If not, I'll vamp for just a minute longer. Because I don't know if Bob's gonna be.
Well, let's let Abby go and then
Yeah.
we'll,
Uh,
Figure it out.
The story, there's a old warehouse on the grounds of the Ellis, I think it's in the Ellis, the prison wall. Which one? The walls. The walls. That they wanted to tear down for years. But the bats got in there and they even tried building new facilities to bring the bats, and bats wanted no part of it. So there's a constant battle, do we tear this over? And they can't because there's so many bats, but they do a bat chat in the evening and you get to see them all fly out. So that's on the 8th.
Can you say we can bring somebody?
It's the 18th.
18th, and I think it's like, starts at like 7, I think it's scheduled, and, Gerald was saying the bats come out like 8:20 or something
Yeah.
like that, right now, it's dark enough, so. Yeah, pretty cool. All right. Miss Abby, it's up to you. This is Abby Hendrickson, did I say that
Yep,
correctly?
got it.
And she is going to allay all our fears of snakes,
Yes,
develop an appreciation of them, and then we'll go find some,
yes.
okay?
So that's my first question. Thank you, Michael. Who is on the train of every time you see a snake, you want to kill it? Don't be shy, raise your hand. Okay, well, my work is done. Bye, guys. Okay, so there's my thing. We can start a slideshow. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm gonna get back here. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I did my undergraduate at A&M on wildlife and fisheries, and I did my master's at Texas Tech on biology, specifically herpetology. I looked at alligators and the parasites that live inside their gut fauna. So that was very, very fun. All right.
do we have our clicker, Michael?
Yeah.
Michael will have a clicker, but if you want to start, we'll get it working.
So after I graduated, I went and did some bird surveys under wind turbines. And then came down to Houston as my husband got a job down here and started my own habitat restoration business. So we do hummingbird habitat, pollinator gardens, butterfly gardens, all of that kind of thing. We even do snake habitats. So we are trying to restore our wildlife habitat on small scales in your backyards, which is, everybody has a backyard. Definitely put a potted plant in there or something. So go native. And thank you. I'm super happy to talk to you guys about that after class, but herps are my favorite. And so I really want to get into this. So what is a herp? You'll hear me say herp, herpetology, or we're going today afterwards, we're going herping. That's the verb. So herp is from the Greek word herpeton. It means a crawling thing. So herp is crawl. And what is a herp is all the reptiles and amphibians, even though they're not paraphyletic. So this is our tree of life. We have crocs and birds very closely related down here, the archosaurs. We have lizards and snakes on the same branch. So our snakes evolved from our lizards. And then we have tuatara really close right here. That is a very ancient lizard. We don't have it here in the United States, but it has kind of an optical third eye on its head. So they're very interesting, cool, iguana-looking ancient creatures. And then we have next to the lizards and snakes are turtles. That concludes reptiles. So our birds are reptiles. I'm sorry, I'm not talking about them today. And then we have amphibians up here, which are also tetrapods. So we have the cecilians. We don't have those in America or in North America. They are South America completely. They're like they're an amphibian that looks like a worm. as best as I can explain it. And I think I have some pictures. Salamanders, frogs, and toads all together. Anybody have questions about our tree of life, how things are maybe related?
The one with the third eye, where is that found?
It's on a couple islands. Out, I don't know where.
New Zealand.
Thank you, New Zealand, yes. All right, so a healthy ecosystem is completely supported by diversity. So we need to have the predators, we need to have the prey, we need to have everything in line. So I have 15 acres just north of Cut and Shoot here, so it's very close actually. And we love to see the bobcats and the coyotes and the snakes, because that means everything underneath that predator, that's an apex predator. So the ecosystem underneath them is complete and intact. So when you see an apex predator, you know you're in a healthy ecosystem. This is the Lactovolterra curve. So it's our prey and predator fluctuations. So we'll say mice and snakes. So our snakes are this orange, and they kind of follow these big bumps in the rat population. And so as the rats get more and more and more, the snakes can eat more and more and more, right? And then as this little area here, you drew a line that direction, that's called carrying capacity. That's what the environment can hold, all right? Oh, there's my little, boop, right here. So this oscillation, it kind of back and forth, that might be a drought, right? And then they come back and they get to carrying capacity, and then they drop down because they ran out of food. So it oscillates right around that carrying capacity. So amphibians, we'll start there. They breathe through their skin. They are a great bioindicator for water. So if an amphibian is in water, it's usually clean enough for the amphibian. That's not clean enough to drink, but it's clean enough for the amphibian because they are tied to water and they are breathing through their skin. It's called cutaneous respiration. I just said they're tied to water, so they have to have their eggs in water. We know tadpoles from frogs and toads. And then we have a tadpole to a froglet. It says young frog, those are called froglets, to the adult frog. In North America and South America, I think all over the world, we have salamanders that their mating rituals are really interesting. It's usually underwater and they do a dance together. So it's not well researched, but it is kind of cool to think about. Down here, does anybody know what this guy is? Anybody? It's a siren. It's an amphibian that we have here in Texas, and you'll catch them a lot in crawfish traps, but they are legless amphibians, kind of odd, like a caecilian. These are the caecilians up here, this worm-looking weirdo, and they are fossorial. So they are always in the underground in the leaf litter in the jungles of South America. And then we have our toads and frogs. So what is the difference between a toad and a frog? Does anybody know?
Frogs are smooth skin. and
Yes.
toads are rough.
Toads tend to have that like bumpier, warty skin, and frogs will have that smooth, kind of sleek, shiny skin. Also, frogs jump. Toads, they kind of like do this little like hop, 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 hop. It's a small little hops. A frog will go boy and be way over here by the time we figure out where he is. So that difference in leg jump is a good characteristic that you can see if a frog is going woo. That's a frog. If it's like boink, 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 it's a toad. Our toads have poison glands on the back of their head. They're called parotid or parotoid glands. And usually you have to mess with the toad to get them to express their parotoid glands. You'll have to try, like a dog usually will try to eat a toad, and then they'll express their parotoid glands. The dog will throw up and foam at the mouth, and that's usually it. So you can tell the different species of toads by the shape of their parotoid glands. So if one has a shape like this, it's one species. If another one has a shape like this, it's a different species. That book I have up here details the shape of parotid glands for all of our North American toads, so you can see who you're looking at just based off the parotid glands. All right, more about parotid glands. You can see the shapes here really well. Does anybody know this guy? He's real common. It's a Gulf Coast toad. Gulf Coast. So do you see this little ridge on his eye here? That is called a cranial ridge. And you can see it really well when you capture them because it looks like they're wearing a little crown on the top of their head. There are only toad that looks like that. And they're our most common toad. So you'll be able to see them. This is the picture of the parotid glands expressing themselves. So he's stressed. It's kind of like a milky substance that just leaks out. That is a true poison. You'd have to eat it. I'm gonna harp on this a lot. All right, native frog calls. Don't know if this is gonna work. Okay, we're gonna do this really quick with my phone. So that top guy, that's a narrow-mouthed toad. And to me, they sound like a goat bleating. All the time. And gastro. Yeah.
So I was backpacking in Sam Houston National Forest with a friend, and we were by that little pond area in there. And there was some animal, it was a bullfrog, making like this really crazy noise that me and the friend that I was with had never heard before. And so we were both like in our tents, like not in the same tent, just like, whatever that is sounds huge, you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
obviously really close, we're like, just stay here and hopefully. Yeah, and then I take the recording and I play it back to my friend and he's like, that's a bullfrog. And we were just terrified, but yeah.
That's funny. They can sound, it's the same way for me and armadillos at night. They sound like a giant hog busted through the forest and it's just this little armadillo. All right, this is a gastrophrine or a narrow-mouthed toad. You're gonna find these guys under logs, really when it rains. So like last night, you might have heard them.
Those are really tiny ones.
Yeah. There's another frog in the background. That's a green tree frog. That. We'll do it again. Do it again. Goat bleeding, okay? The next narrow mouth toad. All right, and we'll go green tree frog. We're already hearing them. Like a butt. Yeah. A little dog mark, yeah. Then let's look at our Gulf Coast toad. They make a lot of different sounds. So they can make the typical bullfrog sound, but they can also make like a screaming sound. It's odd. This is our Gulf Coast. It sounds like a woodpecker kind of drumming. Yes, ma'am.
Is this typically for at night?
Yeah. Or after rain. After rain. Yep. So almost a woody kind of tap, I tend to think of him as. And we've got our, does anybody know who this guy is? The center here? It's a gray tree frog, it's Coke's gray tree frog. And I love them. They have the, you can kind of see it on the picture. If they're on the tree, you're never gonna see them unless they move. But if they're kind of opened up like this guy, hello, you can see the bright orange yellow on their legs. It starts like here and goes like to here. So it's a very bright, whoa, yellow. All right. And Coke's gray.
Tree frog doesn't look as smooth as like the real tree frog.
Yeah, they look a little bit more model. More of a true frog sound to me. And those guys are really common after rain. You'll hear them after, like in the middle of the day during the rain. And we'll do bullfrog last guy.
Possible hog, because we ran that scenario, like maybe, so we didn't know what a bullfrog or a hog sounded like, so we picked the deadener of the two.
Yes. Okay, let's see what this guy. Before. A platform, almost? Okay, that was a bullfrog. Yes. So those are our frog sounds. Let me turn that off. Does anybody have questions about frog sounds? These are our most common frogs that you'll hear in Montgomery County. Okay. Turtles, testudines. We have a couple of different turtle species. And we are going to learn about what a turtle is, what a tortoise is, and what a terrapin is. So down here, I'm not sure. What are the little frogs in my yard? I don't have a pond nearby. They're probably cricket frogs. If I had to guess, probably cricket frogs that have a little greenish X on their back. Sometimes if they're a southern cricket frog. Good questions. Yes. So our turtles are testudines. Up here, this is an alligator snapping turtle. We have these, they are threatened. So if you see one, they're very, very cool, and that you should tell a game warden you saw one because they're cool. And they want to know. They have all of these little bristles kind of along their skin, which makes them kind of this ancient mossy looking thing. They are different from our common snapping turtle, which we see commonly. So we will talk about that. This down here is a green sea turtle. We may have these guys off the coast of Galveston. And then, does anybody know this little guy?
Three-toed box turtle?
The box turtle, yes, the box turtle, probably a three-toe. Female or male?
Male.
It's a male, so you can tell by the color of their eyes. On box turtles, males have reddish orange eyes, very bright eyes. Females have yellow brown eyes, okay?
Can I add something to the turtle thing?
Yes.
I think it's illegal to take those turtles too, like if the game warden catches you taking a turtle, you can get.
Big
ticketed.
trouble. Under the jail, big trouble, yes, yeah. All right, so our turtles, our testudines are going to be all over the place as far as diet goes. So carnivorous guys are like our snapping turtle here. And this is his lure, his lingual lure, that is in his mouth. So he sits there in the murky water and waits for a fish to swim by, and he wiggles his lure on his tongue like a little worm. When the fish comes, grabs it. So that's how they're hunting in almost complete blindness, right, of the murky, nasty water. technically, this is not a turtle, this is a terrapin. And I know that's a new word for a lot of us, but it's talking, so this is a true turtle. He has flippers. That is what makes a true turtle, the flippers, okay? So terrapins, they can go in and out of water and they usually have claws that can burrow their nests. See, on these guys, we're still on flippers. And they're freshwater. So most turtles that are in freshwater are going to be terrapins, okay? We talked about that guy, tortoises. So we have really one-ish tortoise here. It's the Texas tortoise, the Texas gopher tortoise. They are endangered from what I believe. And it's due to habitat loss. So that's pretty common with a lot of our herps. Yes, ma'am.
Are red-edged sliders not from here?
They are from here, but they've been kind of, it's weird. So we have native red-eared sliders, but because of our environmental conditions and the pet trade, we have too many. And so our ponds aren't really, they don't have the apex predators in it. We don't have alligators to be eating the turtles, and people will just release their turtles into the pond because they see other turtles that look like them. And so a lot of it is a pet trade, and then it's just kind of gotten out of hand.
Cause that's what's in the pond in my neighborhood is
Yep,
all
all
red-eared
red-eared,
sliders.
yeah. Yeah. Tortoises, they tend to have more elephantine features. They're true land, testudines. So don't put them in the water. They can't really swim. They float-ish, but they don't really swim. So their feet, to me, look very elephant-like. And one of my jobs before doing my master's was doing desert tortoise research. And we would go out into the desert and find these big guys out in Nevada. And whenever we find them, they void their bladders. They just go to the bathroom. And that was sad because it maybe took them a couple of years to build up that amount of moisture out in the Mojave Desert. And so we'd have to give them water back after they voided, and you just pour it on top of their head. They lift their head up and they just kind of like sip it through their jaws. It's odd, very odd. Tortoises can live very, very long. Short story. I've always wanted a sulcata tortoise. They get big. They live to about 160 years old. I have ethical qualms with the pet trade. And so my husband and I were talking, and the only way we'd ever get one if it just wandered onto our property. Well, he's in Colombia a couple months ago, and we had an 85-pound sulcata tortoise wander onto our property. And so I'm doing a happy dance in the middle of the road because I know I'm gonna get to keep this thing. And he is upset because he has to build a 50 by 50 foot pen to keep this thing inside the barn. And so now we have Scoot. He's enormous. We've looked for his owner. We looked for his microchips. We looked all over Facebook. Nobody claimed it.
They're always escaping.
They are artists at escaping. Yes,
My neighborhood is always like.
yes. And so we had, no, you're good.
My tortoise, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we looked for somebody because this guy, I mean, he's 85 pounds. So I was like, oh, he's gotta be 60 years old. We take him to the vet, he's 10. And I'm gonna have to have grandkids to will this thing too now. Yes, ma'am.
Certain story. My father gave me, I love animals. So when I was 8 years old, from the turtles,
Yes,
Penelope. And moving forward, the neighbor didn't want his turtles because what wasn't fitting his body. So I said, no, don't throw it away. I will take it. It's Ulysses. He found out that it's the male and female. The look of the back is different, and he's smaller.
yes,
I'm 61 years old, and the Penelope is like this now.
yeah,
And my sister have in Argentina. And I'm assuming my nephews will keep her.
Yeah.
And she lay eggs every February.
that's so crazy.
Never touch it or anything.
Yeah,
The dogs normally eat her eggs.
Right.
She will dig a burrow,
mhm,
lay the eggs, and she knows you. Now, Ulysses will beat you, will run. My sister have a cat, and he like to get the cat and kiss me Ulysses.
Typically, so I have a wild caught snake with me today. Just in case we didn't find anything out on our adventures. But typically wild caught things will be much more bitey than a captive bred thing. So if you are getting a snake or you're getting a lizard and you're at a reptile show and it is bitey as all get out, but they're telling you that it's captive bred, it's a red flag, it's a red flag. Any other questions about terrapins, tortoises, turtles?
Box turtles, turtles or tortoises?
They're turtles. They can swim a little bit.
Can they?
Yeah, not much, but a little. You have to think about when like we have three-toed box turtles and eastern box turtles here. When we get the big rains like we did last night, they're usually down in the bottomlands, and so they're gonna have to either move. And so you'll see turtles moving before a big rain, they'll move. Or they're going to get washed and floated away, and so they have to be able to deal with that in some manner. So they can, box turtles will shut their shells completely. They have a hinge at the bottom of it. The bottom part of the shell is called a plastron, and the back part is called a carapace. So the plastron has a hinge in it that they can shut, and that's why they're called box turtles, because they have a little box. Okay. This is how turtles are determined with their sex. So it's called temperature dependent sex determination. We are typically determined with our sex on chromosomes in XX or XY. This, turtles and alligators, it's a little different for alligators, but for turtles, they are based off of temperature. And so at the top of the nest, where the sun hits and it gets warmer up here, are the females. At the bottom of the nest, a couple degrees colder, that makes males. So I ask you guys, okay, I'll ask you later. This is a baby green sea turtle popping out an egg. This is the temperature dependent curve that is saying at a really low temperature, all of the babies are male, and at a very high temperature, all of the babies are female. Okay. This is a leatherback sea turtle, pretty common down in South America, but they get up to a ton. So they're enormous turtles. Threats to turtles. So my question for you guys was, if we have temperature dependent sex determination with turtles, how is climate change going to affect the turtle population?
That would be mostly female.
It would be mostly females, right? So that is going to affect all of our animals that have temperature dependent sex determination.
Don't you think that male will, which of the fighting for survival, it will do something to them that they will be able to determine sex and male sex at higher temperature
So
at some point?
that would take a very, very, very long time, past human lifetime type thing. So what I see more happening is the females, the mothers that are laying the eggs, go further inland, or they dig deeper. And so it's going to be up to the mothers to kind of be feeling, oh, this beach that I've been coming to my whole life, there's not much left of it, so I've got to go further in, or I've got to dig deeper, right? So it's more on the living guys that are current, that's who drives evolution, right? Is who's living and who's gonna survive through it. Yeah. Sea turtles' favorite snack in the ocean is jellyfish, and plastic bags look a heck of a lot like jellyfish. So you will often see turtles dead with a ton of plastic in their stomachs. They don't have a gag reflex. So once they bit something, they're committed. They're gonna eat the whole thing. They can't just get it back out. So that's why it's so super important to recycle, to have, reduce our waste, that kind of thing. And then there's of course poaching. So this is tortoise shell. I think it's gorgeous, but it's not worth it to me. I'd much rather see an alive turtle being a turtle than a pair of sunglasses. And so people do kill sea turtles and turtles for their shells. They also kill them for their eggs. And many different cultures feel that turtles soup, turtle, anything has certain remedies to it. So there's a cultural thing, and then there's the monetary issue. We have to protect our turtles better. All right, crocodilians, one of my faves. So American alligators, this is what I did my master's on. That's me and my little crew with like an 8-foot little guy, pretty small. The biggest we caught was 15 foot. They can get quite big. They are so cool, and I'm gonna try not to bore you with this, but my master's was on ontogenetic niche shifts. So that means that when a baby alligator is a baby, they're in what's called a nursery pond. And they're eating things like dragonflies, snails, tiny little crayfish, that kind of thing. That means that their parasites are also reflective of their diet. As they grow, they have to get out of the nursery pond. So they'll grow out of the nursery pond, their diet changes because they're in bigger water. So bigger crayfish, crabs, what else did we find? Fish.
Turtles, they don't need to.
That's the big guys. That's the big guys. So whenever you're looking at an alligator, you have hatchling, you have juvenile, a subadult, and an adult. And it's not based on their age, it's based on their size, because alligators grow at different rates. If one guy is 1 year old and he's just shoving down food, he's gonna grow much quicker than the other guy who's 1 year old that eats once a week. So their growth rate is dependent on how much they're eating. That's why we differentiate them by size, not as age as you do, okay?
I have a question to that. Is that when, like, they start having babies, they will not start reproducing until they hit a certain amount of size? It has nothing to do with their age?
Yes. Yep, they've got to get the size good until they can put the energy towards the eggs,
Okay.
right? Because if you're small, you're growing and you're putting your energy towards growth and being big enough to defend yourself, essentially. So we go from these nursery ponds to like the channels, let's say. And there is where the juveniles and subadults are. And then typically the big guys, the adults, will take up a lot more space. They'll have a territory. But as they move, as they grow, they move through their environment. And that's called an ontogenetic shift. Their niche is shifting from baby food to adult food. And that's reflective in their parasites. So that's what I was looking at specifically. What was interesting is that the big guys we found would eat things like birds, raccoons, swamp rabbits, turtles, the big stuff. They're actually being that apex predator. Anything below that, they're a swamp puppy at that point, okay? They do cannibalize each other. One of the more interesting things I found in the stomachs when we necropsied them was alligator toe tags. So the place that I did my master's is in Grand Chenier, Louisiana, and it's a wildlife refuge. And so they will tag their alligators between the toes with these little metal tags. One of our big guys had about 15 tags in his stomach. And so he specializes on eating others of his own species, which is kind of weird and kind of, but cool, right? So it's neat to see what they were eating. We had to do a gastric lavage. So that's where we caught 122 alligators. We catch them, we'd open their mouth, tube them with kind of like a esophageal tube, pump them full of water, stilt them back up. All of their ingesta comes out into a bucket, which my lovely undergrads picked through for me. And then we'd tie them back up, put them in the holding pen, and we'd have to shoot them. And that was so hard for me. But the place I did it, they cull 122,000 alligators there every year. So my 122 was not so bad. No, I still have a hard time ethically with it. Yes.
So how does that tie into the carrying capacity piece that you were missing? Like there's 122,000?
That's a great question. Yes. So in the 1800s, the alligators were almost hunted to extinction. We almost didn't have any left. Grand Chenier is like ground zero for the alligator repopulation. And so while we have all across the southern United States, especially in Florida, a big strong hold in Florida, in Louisiana, that's where they got their grassroots to come back. And so they allow hunting in Louisiana. It's also like our deer population, right? We have such a robust deer population because we have excellent managing tools for it. And I'm not a big hunter, but I get why we cull things. And because we have people feeding deer with deer feeders, or we have people feeding alligators with chicken line trying to catch crab, right? So we have all of this input into the system, and of course, the carrying capacity, because that's what you do when you feed a wild animal. You're telling them the environment can hold more of you. So go breed, go make more babies, and then I'm gonna stop feeding you and you're on your own. The environment carrying capacity goes down. And so they are at such a number that they have to take every year just to keep it kosher.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
That does make sense.
Okay, yeah. It's still hard for me, because I love these animals. I love them. But I get it. I do. And they don't waste the animals. They're making things like boots or alligator meat. That's something else. If you eat alligator, you really, really want it to be farmed alligator. My best friend who was doing her master's with me, she took my samples off of the alligator tails and ran heavy metal analysis. So we typically eat alligator tail. That's the best part. It's not fatty. It's not, it's just like chicken, right? So she took the alligator tail and did heavy metal analysis on it. Wild alligators store all of their heavy metals in their tail. They'll also shed it in their eggs. So when we eat a wild caught alligator, we are getting our lifetime supply of mercury, of lead, of these kind of things that they are putting into their tail. So just hope for farm raised alligator if you're gonna eat it. And it does taste like chicken, so that's your own risk.
I have a question on that, from Louisiana, that kind of makes sense, now that you're talking about it, but is that in relation to the heavy industrial?
Yes. So have you guys learned about the dead zone in the Mississippi Delta? Where the Mississippi River dumps out into the Gulf. It's called a dead zone because there's so much pollutants, nothing can really live there. There's no fishing. They have signs up on the beach that are like, don't swim here because of bacteria levels in the water, that kind of thing. And so I would directly correlate it with that. I would, yeah. Yes.
I have a question about the habitat in Louisiana as well. So all that area, that bayou place where all the water's getting all mixed up, people had to move, like, I guess, I don't know if it counts as erosion or not, but whatever, there's some spacing in there. Does that affect these alligators' habitat?
So, yeah, the short answer is yes, it does. The amount of development in people that we're having, and you see, it would be more evident if we were in a place like Florida or Louisiana. But when a big housing development comes through, they come in and they bring a ton of dirt in and they'll lay that in. They cover up all these little ditches, all these little swales, these estuaries that should be there. Now we do have wetland protection ordinances, but if they're followed, it's kind of up to the builder, right?
Yeah.
And I hope he doesn't get in trouble. Alligators move a lot. So that was another thing we learned during my research, was that they are actually making connections from this pond over here to this pond over here to this pond over here that may be a mile apart, but they will travel over land. So typically the big guys will travel looking for mates, and they'll have this pond over here, they eat everything over here, they take that nutrients inside them, they go to this next pond and they poop. And they deliver all of that nutrients into the pond. And so there are a web of connectivity for ponds and estuaries. I don't know if that answered your question, but yes, it does affect them.
I'm thinking more about all that fossil fuel-y type of stuff that's happening there, destroying that area. Is that gonna impact where they are able to live? Or do they not live there? Cause I'm thinking
So
about.
they are really good at living with people and living in dirty places.
Okay,
But alligators in general, so when reptiles get heavy metals, they have to shed it somewhere or put it somewhere. Oftentimes they'll put it in a place they're not using, like their tail or their eggs or their bones. So their parasite load can be super high too. So I would say that the toxicity necessarily isn't going to directly impact them, but it's gonna directly impact their food sources, and that's gonna collapse the food web.
that makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
okay. Any other questions about gators? They do temperature dependent sex determination. We talked about ontogenetic shift. We talked about landscape connectivity. Their mating rituals, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the males bellow, but they will kind of submerge themselves underwater with their head sticking out, and they make a very low rumbling bellow to where it makes the water rain upwards off of their back. So it kind of like splashes the water that the sound is so low, and it can be heard for miles around, which is very cool.
What time of year is that typically?
Typically in the spring.
Okay.
Yep. Bite force is about 800 pounds per square inch. That's it's pretty hard. Crocs are a little bit more, and crocodiles they're a little bit more scary to me because they can gallop and they will come after you. Every alligator that I caught tried to get away. So, and my friend did crocodilian research too, and she said they'll come at you. So they're different. Let's talk about lizards and snakes now. Anybody know who this guy is? Green anole, that's our garden dragons that we have everywhere. And this is his dewlap. He's gonna do push-ups to get a girlfriend. So we're up here on our tree, right here, lizards and snakes. This is the common ancestor of lizards and snakes. So we see its forelimbs are very, very rudimentary. And this is our fossil evidence of a marine lizard from the Cretaceous period. Up here, so let's start down here. Does anybody know who this guy is?
Skink.
It's a skink, and it's actually a prairie skink. Yes, very close. So we have these guys here. How about this guy? He's got a big head.
It's a skink too.
It's a skink. It's a broad-headed skink. Yep, broad-headed. This guy, also a skink, but a little brown skink. So he's little and brown. That's his name. We have our green anoles. This is the mating. This is a scalopris or fence lizard, like a fence that you go through your backyard in. That's a fence lizard. And this guy, oh gosh, I forget who he is. He's like the broad-headed. Oh, I forgot his name, dang it. I'm sorry, guys. It'll come back to me. Okay. Why do snakes flick their tongue? And lizards, they flick their tongue.
Smelling.
They're smelling. Yes. So their tongue is forked to pick up directional scent, which is super interesting to me. But what they're doing is they're putting their tongue out, waving it around in the air, picking up scent particles, taking it back in and putting it up into the roof of their mouth. And that's the Jacobson's organ. Cats, dogs, a lot of mammals have Jacobson's organs. So you see a cat smell something interesting, they go, that is them using their Jacobson's organ, okay? So they have this organ that's connected to their brain, and that is what is reading scent molecules. So if I'm a snake and you're a mouse and I want to find you, I'm coming out here like this. I put it back in and my brain registers, okay, on the left side, there's more mouse molecules. So I'm gonna go left. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. That's why their tongue is forked. So they can smell directionally. Invasive species. I always like to talk about these guys because I see them all the time. This guy is a Mediterranean house gecko. At night, if you go on and outside and turn on your porch light, I would bet you money that you'll have them on your house, on your windows, eating the moth. They came in on the plant trade, on the plant, like the horticultural plant trade. So they are very common here and now are an established species, but they are still invasive. So invasive species, they take resources from our native species. It just so happens that this guy's really good at it because he's doing it at night. So if he was in the daytime, he would be taking the resources from our anoles. But he's doing it at night. This guy, anybody know what this guy is?
Cuban.
Cuban anole, yes. So this guy is actively taking the resources from our green anoles. They're out there with them. They also came in with the plant trade. I will typically kill these guys if I find them. I don't like killing things, but this guy is one that I will kill. Questions about invasive species?
What do you do with that one?
If I can catch it, I'll kill it.
Okay.
And the best way to kill an invasive lizard is to grab it and lick it in the head once really hard. And then,
Like a thumb?
yep, and that typically snaps their neck.
Okay.
And so it's quick.
Are there other ways?
If you have a vacuum box, I've seen people put them in the vacuum box and take the air out, but I don't like it. I mean, sometimes they struggle with it. So I'm more on the quick, get it done and be done with it. And
Those guys are hard to catch.
they're hard to catch.
They're faster.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Does the green anole turn a kind of a gray,
Yeah.
brown, black color, but does it have a little bit of a white stripe on the top of it? A little bit of a white coloring?
Not typically.
Okay.
So the green anoles do change color. They can change color to brown, to gray, to whatever they're, a lot of times I see them, like they'll turn brown in the mornings trying to get more heat, right? And so that's what I typically see them in. If you see a white line, look closely at it because it may be this guy.
You're talking about just a single line along the spine of the.
Yes,
right?
single line.
Greens do have that sometimes.
Do they?
Yeah.
Because I was wondering if that is the green anole, when I was looking, I have a lot of lizards in my yard.
It's typically the head that gives it away for me.
Okay.
So, and it's easier with snakes, but with the head, you can have this kind of, well, if I can find it. Okay, there's the white line that you're talking about. You see that
On the back?
on the back, that white
Oh,
line,
oh, yes, okay.
but see, he doesn't have it.
It's usually the females.
This guy is more mottled, a little bit more camouflaged, and I see them change shade of color, not change color. It's like they'll be darker or lighter, but not a change of color. And
There's a brown anole that has the orange thing that comes out.
so the Cuban, that's the Cuban anoles.
That does the orange and red.
Yes, most anoles will do that. Most of them have a gular flap. So that's just one of their mating things. It's not a good indicator of who it is for a species, right? Because they all have it. We'll talk about why snakes are important. So besides being our rodent control, they are extremely important with disease control, and they're extremely important for our ecosystem because our rattlesnakes, our canebrake rattlesnakes that we have here, they are our apex predators. They can live up to 30 years. So it's not only an apex, but it's a long-lived apex predator. This is an awesome picture. It's a snake in South America that has a rat that is gulping down in its mouth the wrong way. Sometimes they do that. And he's also caught another rat up here for later. He's probably gonna try and shove them both down his throat. But that's just a really fun picture showing that if you don't like rats and you don't like Hanta disease, you like snakes for sure. We have venomous snakes to thank for a lot of our medicines. And so our blood pressure medicine was originally derived from rattlesnake venom. It affects our blood, and so it's a hemotoxin. We have sea snake venom that's currently being researched for Alzheimer's use. And then if you know anybody who has survived breast cancer, you have a copperhead to thank for that, because copperhead venom helps with breast cancer. That's the derivative of medicine. Yes.
I was reading, in fact, today, that there's a guy that got bitten so many times by a snake that they use in their blood
Mhm.
to test how, create antivenoms and medicines.
Yes. So previously, how we used to make antivenom, we use sheep now a lot, but now we used to use horses. So they would take a little bit of snake venom and inject it into the horse, wait a week. Do it again. A little bit, wait a week. Then they would pull the horse, kill the horse, and take its blood, spin it down, and take the antibodies out, and that is anti-venom. And so that was the way they were making it back then. Now we've figured out synthetic ways to copy it. They've also stopped making antivenom for certain species of snakes. So coral snakes, they don't have antivenom for anymore. The bites are so rare, their mouth is so small, they actually have to chew on you to even get a fang in. So it's so rare that they don't even waste the money on it anymore. They'll just treat you for your symptoms. Okay. 9 pounds of rodents a year, that's a big snake. We have a couple different families of snakes in East Texas. We have the elapids. There's only one guy in the continental United States that is going to be in the elapid family. That's our coral snake. Other elapids are like cobras. So coral snakes and cobras are very closely related.
Is that a coral at the top?
Yes. So red is touching yellow, kills a fellow. If red is touching black, don't jump back.
What does that mean? Don't jump back, like you're fine?
It's friendly.
Okay.
So there's king snakes that mimic those guys.
Okay,
And I think I have pictures of that, so we'll talk about that. We have,
give me just 1 second.
Yes.
So that will, if they gnaw on you, it will kill you.
it's not gonna kill you, you're gonna like lose an arm or a leg. You're gonna be alive, but you're gonna be different. Yeah. So,
Thanks for clearing that up.
yeah. Feel better.
Yeah.
We have our vipers, Viperidae, that is all the other venomous snakes that we have. And then colubrids are our non-venomous, at least to humans. And so like our hognose snakes, they're typically thought of as not venomous. But they do have venom glands, they do have fangs, they are rear fanged, but it's a toad specific venom. So if they bit you, it would be less than a bee sting, right? And so it's technically a venom, but they're not venomous to humans, okay? And that is the majority of our snakes. There are only 4 that you need to know in our area, okay? It's the copperhead, the cottonmouth, the coral snake, and the rattlesnake. 4. Anybody know who this guy is? He's a rat snake, yep. He's a rat snake. You can kind of tell, I'll point this out now. It's not the best picture, but most rat snakes will have this reddish tinge in their scales, in between their scales. And so if you start to see a snake that's gray and mottled, but it has red kind of little blush in it, it's a rat snake. All right, so this guy is our canebrake or timber rattlesnake. They weren't endangered, they've been moved to threatened now. But they are the guys that live 30 years and they are so cool. I've only seen 2 in the wild and I cried for the first one because it was so lucky. It's such a lucky find. All right, coral snakes. Here we go. So red on yellow kills a fellow, red on black, friend of Jack, don't jump back. Cool. This is the coral snake. The yellow is touching the red over here. This is the scarlet king. The red is touching black. So you've got to be able to see who you're looking at before you snag him. They are ground dwelling snakes. So we call them fossorial You'll see them, after heavy rains because they've been flooded out. And so you'll see them kind of come up on the leaf litter, but typically they're in the leaf litter hunting for lizards, hunting for worms, hunting for, other snakes. They like those little brown snakes. So they are kind of our venomous earthworms, you might say. Yes,
Really quick to know that, I was just doing some quick research, distinction for, green anoles versus the invasive species at glance, it's the tail.
ooh, let's go back.
Yeah, so there's a ridge on the.
Ooh, I see.
invasive-
Look
yeah,
at that
basically
ridge.
There's a ridge on the tail of the invasive species versus the green anole, which is like a tapered paintbrush, like it's smooth. And there's no ridge.
Oh, yeah, no
Um,
ridge.
And then also, I saw something the other day about rattlesnakes. Obviously, they're on the dunes right along the coast,
Yes,
but they swam. They were in the Gulf of
Yes.
Mexico on Galveston Island, literally just swimming in the
Yes.
water. So, beware.
yeah. I think I have
Alligators, snakes in the Gulf. of
Oh, there's everything down there, everything.
Yeah.
It's a herpes paradise, it is.
Now, coral snakes also can be, what is it, aberrant, or were they are?
Apparent, yes.
What-
So apparent, so they can, the coral snakes, like all snakes, can be born with weird coloration. So sometimes like you'll see a coral snake that has an all black head down half of its body and then it starts its color. Or it's just a weird color pattern that you wouldn't expect. So for me, I often look at the head here. And if you start to distinguish the characteristics of the snake's head, don't look at the color, but the characteristics of it, it'll help you out a lot. And I know you have to get close, don't get too close, but it helps.
And might it also, I mean, like that's like perfectly patterned there, the pattern, maybe you still maybe have the red and yellow kettle but it'd be a tiny red or
Yep,
tiny bit of yellow, and it's harder to distinguish.
right, it is. And even on this guy, you can see like kind of this blackish throughout his scales. That could throw somebody off. Right, I could see that throwing somebody off. And if this guy was darker, it could really throw somebody off. All right, their venom, we talked about it being neurotoxic. They are fixed fangs, so their fangs stay out. A rattlesnake's fangs fold backwards, and whenever they bite, viper fangs fold backwards. Whenever they bite, they fling them out, and that's how you get bit. So these guys' fangs here, really small, and their mouth is even smaller. Respiratory paralysis, suffocation, and eventually death. There hasn't been that many dead people from it. Typically, you're going to have massive necrosis of your arm or where, usually people get bit on the hand because they're trying to pick them up. 80% of snake bites happen when you're trying to kill the snake. So don't kill the snake and won't get bit, okay? I would agree with this paralysis and suffocation because of its neurotoxic properties, okay? Oh, I have a friend who's actually been bit by a coral snake, and from her pinky to her elbow, she can't feel anything, and this was 10 years ago. And so it's more nerve damage, really. Our vipers, this guy. Is our copperhead? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, my daughter who's an actress told me that there is a hospital in Kingwood that does have a coral snake in it.
They may be a private hospital.
It may be, but
Yeah.
but it's there, so she
The-
told me the name of it, I forgot.
The antivenom is very, very expensive. So just for rattlesnake antivenom, it's about $14,000 per vial.
But it is available.
Okay, yes. Miss Vivian.
Kingwood Hospital is the place in the area to go because they have an expert in it from Spencer Green.
Yeah.
Who he is like an expert in a lot of the US. So, and there's also a group on Facebook called Snake Bites. National Snake Bites.
That is a good group.
I like it
So much from that group.
It's a good group. Yeah.
So National Snake Bite Support, and I mean, there is a rule like you do not comment, only the doctors and experts.
It's a fantastic.
Yeah.
But I've
Yeah.
learned so much.
So this is our copperhead. He is one of our more common snakes that we see, excellent camouflage. They have a caudal lure that we'll talk about, and they are often have these Hershey kisses on them. So that is this Hershey's kiss little whoop. And that's one of the identifying characteristics for these guys. Although they're copper, then copperhead, so copperheads. This is a very close relative. This is the cottonmouth. He kind of sort of has these Hershey kiss things going on, but it's different. He's darker, he's thicker bodied, and his face, we'll talk more about it, but he has an eye stripe down it. And so his face, to me, usually looks mean or angry. I know that's subjective, but you'll see what I'm talking about. And of course, our timber rattlesnake. So these are our 3 members of our vipers here. Difference between folding fangs and fixed fangs. We talk about the fixed fangs. That is a rattlesnake's mouth closed. His fangs are folded up on the end of on the roof of his mouth. When he bites, they come forward and he can bite and inject venom. Okay. We also call our vipers pit vipers. So they have these little heat sensing pits right here underneath their eye. That's their nostril where they're actively breathing. They typically breathe through their nose because if their mouth is full, they can't breathe, so they have to breathe through their nose. They have these heat sensing pits, and it allows them to see this. So in complete darkness, they are looking for heat signatures instead of actual eyesight. And then house snakes here, they actually will put their jaw on the ground and hear the vibration. They feel vibration. So like a vibration of somebody coming towards them, they can feel that if their head is on the ground. So, but snakes don't have external ears. Okay. This is our timber rattlesnake or canebrake. You can tell it's a rattlesnake one because of the rattle, and his head is very triangular. Now, that's not the best way to tell if it's venomous or not, because a lot of our non-venomous snakes will try to trick you and they'll flatten their heads out and be like, oh, I'm venomous. And you're like, no, you're not. You're lying. But I also want to point out this rust colored stripe all the way down his tail. It gets very black at the end. We have the Western Diamondbacks that have a coon tail, right? But this is a very, very black at the end here. And that rust colored is only going to be for our timber rattlesnake, okay? They are ovoviviparous, which means they are live birth laying egg guys. So what that is typically a snake would get pregnant, lay her eggs outside of her body and either protect them or just leave them. So like pythons will protect them. A lot of other snakes will just like, bye. So these guys actually keep the eggs inside of them, let the eggs hatch inside of them, and then the babies come out like a live birth, kind of in a little placental sac.
Out the mouth?
Out of their cloaca. Yeah. So it's like a normal birth, it's just not egg formed an egg, okay? They eat small mammals and they live about 30 years, which is a really long-lived predator. The reason they are having a hard time is because of habitat loss. So they like these bottomland pine forests, the pine meadows. There's not a lot of that left, okay? So if you see one of these, count yourself very, very lucky. So this is just a picture of them milking a rattlesnake. I don't think that's actually a rattlesnake. That is like a death adder or something. But that's typically how they'll milk them. They'll have like a little cup with a little piece of plastic on it, and they'll grab the snake and let it bite and envenomate. Do we know the difference between venom and poison? So there are no poisonous snakes.
Poison you have to ingest.
Yes. Poison you must eat. I could drink a cup of rattlesnake venom and I would be fine. I might have a little diarrhea, but it's not going to kill me, right? Unless I have like a stomach ulcer that it got into my bloodstream. So venom has to be injected. Poison has to be eaten or touched, like poison ivy, okay? This is our cottonmouth. Look at this scale on top of his eye. He looks angry, right? He looks like he's just had a little bit of a bad day. So in addition to that scale, I always look at this eye stripe here. So it's gonna have an eye stripe with 2 white bands or lighter colored cream bands on him. That being said, cottonmouths are incredibly variable. They can be jet black with no pattern on them. They can be extremely colorful with a lot of pattern on them and a lot of vibrancy. And then the young look different as well. So this is a young cottonmouth hunting with its caudal lure. So caudal means tail. They have a really brightly colored tail that they'll kind of hide themselves, and they'll put it and wave the tail up and around, wait for a lizard to come by and snag it. I don't want to hear you, I'm sorry.
Okay, just one more question about this caudal. So there is a hole back there by that tail.
Yes, and I will show you where the cloaca is on our friend. Promise.
Is a cottonmouth a pit viper?
Yes.
It is.
Yes. They do this defensive, so here you can see really well the dark eye stripe with the white on him, okay? That's a good giveaway. Same here. White eye stripe or dark eye stripe with the white lines and an angry scale. This is their defensive posture. This is why they're called cottonmouths. So they gape. That is called a gape. And they will gape at you. So they'll coil up and you're walking along the riverbank, and instead of biting you, they'll gape and they'll show you, hey, I'm here. Don't step on me, and I'm a venomous cottonmouth. Don't do that. What's interesting to me with the amount of snakes that I've caught is that non-venomous snakes bite. They will just bite you all day long, okay? Venomous snakes are calculated, okay? Venom is very expensive to make for them. It takes a lot of energy, it takes some time, and that's why people tend to think baby snakes are more venomous than adult snakes. That's not true. The venom is the exact same across babies and adults. The same components, same chemical makeup, everything. The difference is the babies don't have control over their venom glands. So when they bite, they give you everything they got. That's why it seems like they're a little bit more dangerous. The big guys will often warn you with a dry bite. They won't envenomate the first bite. And then the second bite, they're gonna envenomate. But they're holding back. They're showing a little bit of restraint because they don't have to make more venom. Make sense?
Yes, definitely. How long would it take to make venom?
It depends on the species and how often they're eating and how often they are using it. So there was a big rattlesnake that lived under one of our research trailers when I was in undergrad. And he came out maybe twice a year, and we know that he ate maybe once a year. And so the bigger the snake is, the less they have to eat, because they're very, very good at regulating their energy use. And they are cold-blooded, they're pokiotherms. I don't like cold-blooded, but they're pokiotherms. So their metabolism has to do with the heat in the environment, not like we make our own heat, right? We sweat, we can make ourselves warm when it's cold out. They are completely reliant on what is happening outside. They don't have any metabolic heat going on. Look at the face, the caudal, defensive. Any questions about cottonmouths? They don't chase you. Yes.
Where, do you find them? Is it always with water, or can they just be out in dry areas too?
So they're typically tied to water. Their genus species name is Piscivorus. So pisci is fish, vorus is eating, so they are fish eaters. But they do depredate frogs and other stuff too. So they themselves can leave water and they can go find other places, but their food sources are very tied to water. And so they're going to typically be found around water or somewhere close by.
But they don't chase people?
They don't. So that is one of my wonderful stories. So I grew up thinking that cottonmouths chase you, right? They were aggressive and they're gonna chase you away. when I got into college and we went on our first herping trip, I had a cottonmouth come right through my legs, trying to get away. And so what I learned is that they actually have planned escape routes. And if you're standing in their planned escape route, they're gonna go over your foot, they're gonna go right between your legs, they're gonna get out of the way. And so a lot of people happen to be standing in their escape paths. I've also heard of them accidentally dropping down on people's kayaks while they are going under a tree and the snake is on top of the tree. A lot of times the snake is trying to leave and it's like, oh my gosh, there's something coming towards me. It leaves, it drops on the kayak, right? And so I probably caught over 100 cottonmouths and never once been chased. A couple times they've gone through my legs, a couple times they've been over my foot, but I've never been chased by one. Yes, ma'am.
When I was a kid, I actually saw there was a boy shooting arrows at the gully where it was water and
Mhm.
had a snake. And that snake came up, and I thought it was a cottonmouth, came up that, side of that gully at him.
So
Maybe that was just escape.
it could be escape, it could be that he saw movement and was like very hungry and wanted to go up and see what was happening up there. So that's been another common thing of I get down into the river and a snake starts to come towards me because he's like, something just got in the water. I saw the ripples, right? And he's like, I'm gonna go eat it. But he's not coming after me. He knows he's not gonna eat me, right?
So it's advisable to stay still.
Yes, and really give yourself room. So when we go herping today and I hope we find a cottonmouth. I have my tongs with me and I have my snake boots, but I like to give myself at least 2/3 of the body length away from the snake. So snakes can strike about 2/3 of their body length. So if you're out of that range, you're generally safe. Bigger the snake, bigger breadth of leaving it alone. Yes, ma'am.
So I grew up in the north,
Mhm.
and these are known as, water moccasins.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
we had aggressive ones that would chase us in the bay.
So they can be aggressive,
Okay,
but they're not going to chase you.
okay. So when we're talking about, like, I don't know, the aggressiveness of these snakes, copperheads,
Oh,
very docile,
very,
right?
very.
They're not doing anything unless you're stepping on them.
Yes.
They're camouflaging with the leaf litter, but, cause when I work with kids, so I try to, to give them,
Little
to help them
snake safety.
understand
Yeah.
the difference of the species. Cottonmouths are definitely more aggressive
Mhm.
than copperheads.
They are more aggressive.
Yes,
They're probably the bitiest venomous snake I've dealt with.
okay,
They do want to bite. I picked up rattlesnakes that don't even throw a strike. And so it's kind of what the individual snake is feeling and how he's doing. I've also picked up rattlesnakes that'll fling themselves at me. And so they're just a really hot snake, right? They've been out in the sun all day and they're just like ready to go. So they'll just like fling themselves at you.
when I lived in, I grew up on the bay in Annapolis, and we called them water moccasins. And several times, yeah, we water skiing and stuff, we always knew to look out for the water moccasins, and I had them chased near the tail of the front end of the boat, yeah.
So they can grow up to 5 feet long and typically, so this is a general rule. It doesn't work all the time, but when you see a snake in the water and its entire body is floating, there's a good chance it's venomous. If you see a snake in the water and its head is sticking out and when they stop. So water snakes, when they're moving through the water, they will have their head up, but their body is typically underwater. When they stop, their body sinks and their head's just sitting there, right? When a venomous snake stops, their whole body floats up. And so you'll see rattlesnakes, they'll be swimming across and they're kind of underwater and they stop and their whole body whoop, right up, because they're big bodied snakes. So it doesn't work all of the time, but typically you see a snake floating, it's a good chance it's venomous. Our copperheads, they are masters of disguise. There is one here, the only reason you can see him is his Hershey Kisses, right here. And I think this guy was at my house. So I typically take snakes from clients' houses that they don't want them there or they want to kill them, and I will go and put them in my back acreage and put them there. And they live out there happily ever after lives, no problem. Let's see, oh, mild venom. So if you're going to get bit by a venomous snake, you hope and pray it is this guy. You hope and pray. Typically, they won't give you anti-venom for it. They'll treat your swelling, they'll treat your symptoms and send you home with some fluids. So these guys are the least dangerous of our dangerous venomous snakes, okay?
Do you guys do, where are you located? You're located up here.
In Conroe, yep, but
Okay.
we service the greater Houston area.
Okay, and you do like not rehoming, but,
Relocation, yeah.
okay, because I have killed quite a bit of copperheads, and I hate to say that as a naturalist, I really do, but.
What I'm gonna show you guys is my tongs are really great, and I think everybody who lives in Texas should have a pair of these. So these are our venomous snake tongs. They are not backbreakers, so there's a couple different types that have like a metal bar here, and that's all they have. I call them backbreakers. It tends to hurt the snake. These guys. Pretty nice, right? It's not gonna crush the snake, so you wanna grab them mid-body, and this is plenty long enough for most copperheads that you're gonna move. Boom, into a bucket, put the lid on, and just take them about a mile away. Yep.
I was gonna ask, how far away?
So there's been some research that you don't wanna take them over a mile away because they're very lost. They have like their favorite hunting spots and their favorite basking spots and like all of these things. Yes, your garden. So you don't wanna take them super far away. About a mile is what's recommended. If I come out, I will take them out to my house, which is out here. But we have the snake sanctuary that I make sure they have water, they have basking spots, and we have all of our downed logs there to create habitat. So they're usually pretty happy.
How many can live in one habitat?
I haven't kept track. And I haven't been out there in a minute to go herping. So I've probably released close to 50 or 60 back there. But when I go back there to find them, I maybe found 3 or 4. So I know that they're getting there and then dispersing, right? I know that. Okay, so I also will trap raccoons and bring them to my house. And for some, you guys know my neighbor, don't tell on me, but I will bring them to my house and release them because we have 15 acres, right? We were talking to my neighbor and he's like, there was this horde of raccoons that came in and got all my vegetables in my garden. I'm like, I'm so sorry, it's so weird. But yeah, same thing. So they will disperse, they'll go and find a new home nearby if the habitat is right. So can we tell how old this guy is? He's a baby, yes, his little baby coddle lure. They'll keep that until a couple years later, but usually like the big guys, they don't have their coddle lure at all anymore. Mild venom, very camouflaged. In recorded history, less than 100 people have died from a copperhead bite, and it's usually because of anaphylactic shock. It's an allergy instead of a venom reaction, all right? Again, that Hershey's Kiss pattern, little Hershey's Kiss there.
Hey, Abby, do you know if they give off any type of scent that dogs can detect?
Yes, so copperhead musk, it smells like cucumbers, kind of like rotten cucumbers. So if you're walking around, you smell cucumbers, probably copperhead around. My dogs, my old man, he was never properly snake trained, he just did it on his own. And so I capitalized on that and made all of his puppy siblings that we got him teach them. But you can snake train your dog, so you can get a snake, put it in a bag, put it in the yard, and anytime they get close to it, you tell them no. You tell them, we used a gentle shock on our Malinois because she doesn't feel anything in life. She's insane. But so the shock or a harsh correction of no, they'll start to get that sense, I don't wanna be around you, I'm gonna get in trouble. And so now all of my dogs will smell a snake and they'll go way around it. And it's also a really good like indicator of like, oh, there's a snake in there, and you'll find that. Okay, can anybody see our copperhead? Give you a hint, he's right smack in the middle.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
You see him?
Yeah.
Yes, now.
But with your help, so if you,
Right here.
Oh, wow,
Quite the camouflage masters.
yeah.
So they love leaf litter. The babies will often hang out, and well, not just babies, this species will often hang out at the bottom of trees and wait for cicadas to emerge. They love to eat cicadas. So that's kind of fun. But typically they're gonna be in the leaf litter around the base of trees or in wood piles. Let's see it one more time. Starts here and comes all the way right down here.
Are they active during the day or night or both?
They're at both. Active during both times. If it's too hot, so reptiles shuttle. They'll say, I'm too cold, and they'll go and they'll sit in the sun for a little while, and then they'll shuttle back because they have enough heat to last them the next couple hours. And they'll shuttle back to their little hole or log or whatever. So you'll see them in the daytime too. Yep, but when we go herping, we're gonna be flipping logs, and we'll probably see some. Yes,
Sorry, well, maybe it's a stupid question.
no,
How do interact between each other? You mentioned that you release them in your backyard. Do they attack each other?
no, the copperheads typically aren't territorial. And there's so many of them out and about that they are just kind of living amongst each other. Now, water moccasins or cottonmouths, they will actively eat other snakes and go and find the other snakes. So what the biggest cottonmouth I've ever caught had a water snake in its mouth, and it's where we're going today. It was 4.5 feet long, it was enormous. It was probably a female. Polybrates, here we go, our non-venomous friends. And this guy down here, who's this? It's a rat snake, you can see the little red in his scales. He also has like a googly eye, so a lot of people will say, use their eyes to tell if they are venomous or not, and that's a wives' tale. So if you put a snake out in the sun, their pupils will go slit like cat eyes. But you can also like, this guy to me, he just has a googly eye, like a Muppet almost. And really water snakes, they look like Muppets for sure. So we have a rat snake here. We have a green snake here. You can't tell if he's rough or smooth. We'll call him rough. And here is a hognose. And then here is a buttermilk racer. And that is who I brought today, was our buttermilk racer. Yes. My dog found it. She was out in the pond, out by the pond and just sitting and looking. It was like,
Is that the same thing as a salt pepper king snake?
no, no. All right, so those were our friends here. We're gonna do a little bit of an ID quiz. Yeah,
How
ma'am.
fast do they move?
Which one?
All those in those pictures right there.
They're pretty quick.
Yeah.
Racers are really fast. You have to be like Steve Irwin level to grab those guys. So they're gonna be real fast, and with their hot, they're gonna be so fast. You're not ever gonna catch them. What's interesting about them is they hunt with their head up. They're very visual, so they've got big eyes. They hunt with their head up, and they'll stop and they'll poke up out of the grass and look around, and then they'll go down and kind of slither and then stop and poke up and look around and then slither and do their thing. So they're kind of an interesting hunt to
That's a
watch.
racer in the green one?
No, that's a rough green snake. So, or he could be a smooth green snake. But they are more arboreal and kind of hard to find unless you're really looking for them.
Which one's the racers? They're,
This is a racer.
oh, well, okay.
He's a buttermilk racer. We have black racers and we have coach whips
Okay.
as well here.
You don't have the ribbon snake on this, right?
No, I don't. But ribbon snakes are like our little garden friends, right? We'll see them occasionally in our gardens. Yes, ma'am.
Special king snake. We have a few in our garden, it does the same thing with hunting.
It's pretty lucky.
Yeah.
They're not super common. King snakes are harder to find in general. Yeah, so pretty lucky.
And if we caught it actively, it had just caught a frog.
Nice.
It still had a frog in its mouth and it was, and then I found it again when it was actively hunting and it, yeah, it did the same thing.
It's cool, right?
Really cool.
Yeah, they're cool to watch, and a lot of people, so interestingly, by the time that we often see a snake, we have already messed up its life, right? So what I mean by that is I'm tromping through the forest, the snake sees me before I see it, and it changes its behavior. And so it's very rare that you get to witness a snake with its hunting behavior that is unbiased by human presence. That's what I mean by we usually mess them up. So to be able to see something that is not a gaping posture or a defensive posture from a snake is very cool.
This was through our window.
Yeah.
The second time when it was actively hunting, the first time we had messed it up because it was slithering along with the frog in its mouth. through the
Yep.
outside.
Yep. So if you can see them from a ways away, you're probably gonna get some cooler behavior than just like they're mad at you for being there, you know?
One last thing is, where do these live in the winter time?
Most snakes will brumate or go into torpor, and so it's kind of like a light hibernation. And they'll go in underground, under like fallen logs, in insect or mammal holes. And they will slow their heart rate down and slow their metabolism down to where it's 10-15 beats per minute, like it's slow. And so they just kind of go into this little ice age sleep where they're still awake, but they're not a true hibernation. So they're usually under the ground. Yes, yes, yes. All right, ready for our ID quiz? Venomous or non-venomous?
Venomous,
Who says venomous?
because he's got the triangular head.
What else does he have?
Oh,
Look at his eyes.
yeah.
Do you see the white eye line?
Yeah.
Here. Okay, that's a cottonmouth. He's got that white eye stripe down. So this is just a black, regular old cottonmouth. The only thing that gave it away for me was his eye stripe. Okay, very subtle. Who's this guy? Juvenile copperhead, very nice. This guy? Rat snake. What about this guy? What kind? Timber. It's a timber. He's got that really faint little rust line down his back. What is happening to this snake?
Habitat loss?
Yes.
I would just guess.
A better question would be, why is he in this posture? Yes, so he has his head tucked back. He's pulling his head back and he's thrown out a coil that's a non-important body part. So something is in front of him, poking and messing with him, right? The snake is actually scared. So he has his head back because he's trying to protect his head and saying, take my tail area. I don't need that, but I need my head, okay? So this is an unhappy snake. I got this picture off the internet. I don't know who was pestering him, but somebody was. Who's this guy? It's a decayed. Yes, it's a decayed brown snake. They are earthworm eaters, and they are probably in all of your gardens, all of the time, just there poking around. What about this guy? Venomous or non-venomous? The venomous, yep. And this is a cottonmouth, yes. So he has kind of these little, they look like Hershey Kisses, but they're not total Hershey Kisses, okay? These guys are very closely related to the copperheads. Copperheads are Echistrodon contortrix. These guys are Echistrodon piscivorus. So they are in the same genus. They're very closely related. What is this guy? Venomous or not venomous? Yeah, he's trying to fool you.
Always flapping on this.
Is that a hognose?
It's not a hognose. It's a water snake. It's a broad-banded water snake, but he is trying really hard to tell you that he is a cottonmouth. Okay, he's flattened his head out, he's got his body doing pretty. He's trying really hard to fool you. Non-venomous fish eater. What about this guy? What is he doing? He's gaping, yes. What about this guy? Careful. Yes, it's a water snake. Why is it a water snake?
It doesn't have this.
Yes, so it has these weird little scales going down the side instead of an eye line, right? On all of the cottonmouth pictures we saw, they don't have these big, dark outline scales going down, kind of like a mustache. They have the eye line, okay? So even though his head is triangular, he's trying to fool you. This is definitely a water snake. This is our buttermilk racer. And who's this? Look in between the scales.
All right.
It's a rat snake, right? He's trying hard to say, oh, I'm scared, go away. But that is a rat snake. He is gaping, like cottonmouths do. Again, also, interestingly, most snakes will rattle their tail, even if they don't have rattles. So that's kind of fun. We'll see them in the leaf litter, just. Yes.
Do you ever use as an indicator the eyes? So when I started learning about the venomous versus non-venomous, hooded eyes were an initial indicator of venomous.
Yes,
Okay.
but sometimes the hood is, I don't like to use the hood on the eyes for gin pop. So like, it's typically, that's what I'm trying to say with they look mean. That's that eye coat. So the guys that have the Google eyes, they look like Muppets. They don't have this coat scale on top of it, okay? That's what she's talking about. You usually have to get.
The hooded eyelid, I'm talking about the eyelid. So for non-venomous, you can see the entire eye. If you see a clear circle.
Yes.
Then, okay. Good.
Yeah, and it's that little, like, what makes them look mad.
Okay.
Yes. So let me find, I think this is our last guy.
Eyebrow.
Yeah. Bad pictures. Okay, yes, right here, you can kind of see his little eyebrow. Right there. The only reason I don't like using that is you have to get pretty close typically. And then if you know your 4 venomous guys, you can easily suss out, is it a coral snake? Probably not, right? Is it a rattlesnake? Probably not, because we're not gonna see those. So it's one of these other 2, right? Yes, ma'am.
The buttermilk snake, was it venomous or?
Non-venomous. It's non-venomous, yep.
We don't have the cobra here, right?
We don't have cobras, no. The only cobra family member is the coral snake.
Unless somebody released them into their backyard.
Yes.
Snake or.
Yes. All right, I think this is my last slide. So I will show you guys. Ooh. This is a great field guide for the venomous snakes of Texas. It will tell you everything you ever wanted to know and more about venomous snakes. This is a great guide for rattlesnakes of the United States. There are a lot of rattlesnakes in the United States. So this is a really great book. I love this book. This is one I got from you guys at one of your talks that I went to. So it's Herping Texas. It talks about all the great places to go herping in Texas, how to herp, which we're going to talk about. And then this is the Peterson Field Guide. This is the Western one. I tried to find the Eastern one this morning to no avail. But this Peterson Field Guide is the Herp Bible. So it has plates of all of the different species that you can see. It has range maps and it has behavioral cues. Very helpful book. Okay. I also have my snake boots and my snake taunts here if you want to take a picture. We have a rattlesnake skull in here that I'm happy to take out and show you guys. They do replace their teeth like sharks do. So it's just kind of a constant little replacement. This guy has 4 fangs that you can see. So he's in the process of replacing both of his front fangs right now when he died. This was an alligator from my master's that I decided to keep. It's probably a 6-foot little friend, not too crazy. And then this is their osteoderms. So this is the armor plating that is underneath their skin on their back that makes them look like a dinosaur. And they are dinosaurs. They haven't changed in millions and millions of years. But these are their bony armor that sits underneath the alligator. It's called a scute. And so this is what makes up the scute. Okay, so you can come up and feel these. And then I, of course, have this little friend, our buttermilk racer. That my dog helped me catch.
This morning.
And he's probably gonna bite because he's wild, okay? Maybe he's cold and he'll be nice.
You just found him on your property?
Oh, he's gonna be poopy too, okay. All right. No. So this is our buttermilk racer. They are gorgeous. They're one of my favorite snakes. He's about to shed, so he looks a little opaque. Oh, yeah, he'll move. I'm trying to keep his cloaca closed back here because I don't want him pooping everywhere. But you can see him doing his little tongue thing. And you can see his coloration. I'm really surprised he's not very bitey right now. But if anybody wants to come and hold him or touch him, you're welcome to. At your own risk. Here's his cloaca. This is the common hole for snakes and other birds, reptiles, amphibians. So they have a common hole where poo, pee, and sex happens. So it's all in the same hole.
And babies come out of there.
Yes.
All in there.
Yep.
It's not bigger than I was thought.
Oh, so pretty.
They are, their scales are made out of what our fingernails are made out of. And so it's soft, kind of like our fingernails. Keratin. I know, they're so soft.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So typically with male and female, I'd have to probe them. So I would take a probe and I would put it up here. And if it goes in, it is a female. And if it goes in, it's a male. If it stops, it's a female. So if it stops, I'm hitting her ovary. If it goes in, there's no ovary. So typically you have to probe them for it. But you can also, so like the female snakes will also be bigger than the male snakes. So if you see two snakes together and one is massive and the other one is small, they're probably a mating pair.
You mentioned that one's about to molt. How could you tell?
Just his opaqueness, usually he's gonna be like bright
More glossy?
black and
Okay.
white. Yeah, so he's just kind of,
Looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cloudy.
that depends on how often they eat. So it's kind of like the alligators, as much as they eat, they'll grow. If he's just shoving stuff down, he may shed once a month. But if he's doing, not much, he could shed maybe twice a year. So it kind of depends on how much they're eating.
How long can they go without eating?
The bigger the snake, the longer. So like anacondas, they'll eat once a year or two. And then like these guys are probably eating every 2 to 3 days.
What's this one eating? I forget.
He's gonna be eating frogs, little mice, couple of lizards. I mean, he's fast, so he's gonna catch the fat stuff.
I'm sorry.
And this is full grown.
No, they can get quite a bit bigger. Yeah, this is just like a little juvenile friend. I mean, he's not a baby by any means, but he is scared, but he's not biting, he's old. He gets released today. I found him last week, so he gets released today.
Okay. And do you feed them anything while you have them in?
I typically do. I'll feed them frogs or mice, but I try to give them mice alive. Because I don't want them on frozen mice and just expect them to, like, I don't want to mess his wildness up.
What about water, the water source?
The water dish.
Okay.
Yeah, he just has pillowcase for transport.
Yeah, so they need water and then frog, whatever.
Yeah.
I have a book there. I would like to try to recommend the book, and I don't know if if Abby's read any of the Simon, or if you've ever read any of Cy Montgomery's works, she writes books about animals with a real human connection to them. They're easy read. She has one that I read of Time and Turtles. And it's usually associated, she's working with some organization. In this case, it was a turtle rescue in the Northeast. And this year she spent with them, with these turtles. So, I highly recommend, it's an easy read. It's not a highly technical, it's a tearjerker in some cases. Because she gets very connected to the animals that she describes. It's called Of Time and Turtles.
Of time and.
Of Time and Turtles, by Simon, S-Y. Is, S-Y, last name Montgomery. And easy to get, it's at Barnes and Noble and Amazon and all that. And you'll find a bunch more. She also wrote one recently about octopuses that is amazing. In a minute, we're gonna disband and reconnect at Carl Barton Park. To go on the herb walk, count today as 4 hours. How long we're out there, we probably won't, we'll probably be there till over, so the count it is 4 hours today. We'll see what we can do to get the Bob Daly or someone to do the soil food network web in one of ours.
I'll send you guys a link to, a Doug Tallamy video about, Nature's Best Hope,
Okay.
which was the other half of Bob Daly's talk. So you can at least go online and watch that.
I highly recommend that video. I viewed it, it was just, wow. Great speaker. The Doug Tallamy, that was telling me.
Yeah, I've already got it queued up to send you. I didn't want to send it in the middle of class, being disruptive.
Okay, we need a few minutes to clean up here. I think a couple of people want, if you know your password and ID for VMS, we can go look at it just to double check what it shows in there. It's completed. It's about a 12-minute drive. We could say 10:45, we'll start to gather there.
We're out.
Abby,
Carl Barton Park is,
Abby, can you tell us?
if you go,
Yes.
we're up there. Oh, yeah, where do you want to gather?
The area we're going to is the pond here. Remember this pond? There's a trail that goes back through here to Little Caney Creek. That's where we're headed. So you're gonna want to park in this little parking lot right here. So the entrance is up on 336. There is, if you guys come from this way, there's gonna be an entrance up here that you don't want to go through. It's gonna take you all the way to the pickleball courts over here. So keep coming to the second main entrance and you'll come down and doop, right in over here. And I think it says nature trail or like a little hiking trail sign is over that direction. But you'll also see me standing out there with my boots on. So I'll be there.
Yeah, any, closed-toed shoes?
Closed-toed shoes, wear shorts at your own risk, sun protection, your water bottles if you tend to get thirsty. This is not a long, hard hike, but it is humid out today and it looks like it's warming up on us. So just kind of be prepared. And then when we get there, I'm gonna go through the herping do's and don'ts, okay? Before we start.
Right. So 10:45-ish. We'll wait a couple of minutes, make sure everybody finds it. And then otherwise, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.